In the early stages of CSS development, developers had to rely heavily on floats and positioning to achieve layouts. While it was functional, this approach wasn't the most effective or efficient. As time went on, Flexbox emerged, revolutionizing the way developers approached layout creation. With Flexbox, developers gained a powerful tool to align and distribute items within a container in a much more intuitive way. This drastically changed how we build CSS layouts today. To get started with Flexbox, you first need a container for your elements, which will house the child elements that need to be laid out. In the HTML structure, these elements will reside inside a parent div, and this div will act as the container. Moving to CSS, the key step is to set the container's display property to Flex. This simple change triggers Flexbox, activating two invisible axes, the main axis and the cross axis. The main axis is where the flex items, or children, will be aligned, and the cross axis runs perpendicular to the main axis, serving as a secondary alignment space. By default, Flexbox positions items along the main axis in a horizontal row. However, you can change this behavior using the flex direction property. This property allows you to control the direction of the main axis. The default setting is row, which aligns items horizontally, but you can also change the direction to column to make the items stack vertically. So, if you want your items to be arranged in a vertical column, you would set flex direction column. Otherwise, if you prefer them to stay in a row, or leave it as is since row is the default, you can omit this property altogether. In addition to row and column, Flexbox also supports row reverse and column reverse values. These reverse the direction of the items along the main axis, which can be useful for specific layouts. For example, to reverse the order of items without changing the HTML. After setting the direction of the main axis, the next step is to control the alignment of the items within that axis. This is where the justify content property comes into play. With justify content, you can position the items at various points along the main axis. For example, justify content flex start aligns the items to the beginning of the main axis, while justify content flex end pushes them to the end. If you want the items to be centered, you can use justify content center. Alternatively, you can use justify content space between to spread out the items evenly, with equal spacing between each one. The justify content space around property adds space before the first item and after the last item, while justify content space evenly spaces all the items evenly, including the edges. If you are using flex wrap, justify content can still help you align items across rows, which is great for responsive layouts. For example, you can use justify content space between to spread items across multiple rows. But what if you need to align items along the cross axis? This becomes especially useful when the main axis is horizontal. This is where the align items property comes in. Align items flex start will place the items at the start of the cross axis, and align items flex end will align them at the end. If you prefer to center the items along the cross axis, you can use align item center. Another useful value for align items is baseline, which aligns items based on their text baseline. This can be particularly noticeable when you have text with varying font sizes. Align items controls the alignment of items within a single row column, while align content controls the alignment of multiple rows or columns when wrapping. Align content only takes effect when flex wrap is used. Sometimes when the container becomes too narrow to fit all the items in one row, the items may start to overlap. To prevent this, you can allow the items to wrap onto the next line using the flex wrap property. By setting flex wrap, the items will automatically wrap to the next line when there's not enough space. The default setting for flex wrap is no wrap, which keeps all items on a single line regardless of available space. When you use flex wrap, it also unlocks the align content property, which aligns multiple rows or lines of items along the cross axis, similar to how align items works. The values for align content are the same as align items: flex start, flex end, center, space between, space around, and space evenly. In addition to controlling the layout, you might want to introduce some space between your items for a cleaner and more organized appearance. Instead of manually setting margins on each item, you can use the gap property to automatically apply spacing between the items. This makes it easier to control the layout, especially when you have many items. The gap property can be used not just for horizontal spacing, but also for vertical spacing. You can use gap 20 pixels for both rows and columns, or you can set them individually like gap 10 pixels, 20 pixels for row and column gaps respectively. When working with Flexbox, you can also control how individual items grow or shrink within the container. The Flex Grow, Flex Shrink, and Flex Basis properties allow you to adjust the size of the items based on available space. The FlexGrow property enables an item to expand and fill any remaining space within the container. On the other hand, FlexShrink determines how much an item will shrink if there isn't enough space. The FlexBasis property sets the initial size of an item before Flexbox starts distributing space. You can even use the shorthand Flex property to combine all three of these properties into one. For instance, Flex1 is equivalent to setting FlexGrow 1 FlexShrink, 1 FlexBasis 0. If you need to override the alignment of a specific item within the container, the Align Self property gives you the flexibility to do so. It allows you to adjust the alignment of an individual item, overriding the Align Item setting for that item alone. For example, if you have a container where all items are aligned to the top using Align Items Flex Start, but you want one specific item to be centered, you can apply Align Self Center to that item. Another powerful feature of Flexbox is the ability to change the order of items visually without affecting their order in the HTML structure. The order property enables you to control the sequence of items in the layout. By default, all items have an order value of 0. If you want an item to appear first in the layout, you can set its order value to -1, while setting it to 1 will make it appear last. However, it's important to use this property carefully, as it can impact the semantic meaning of your HTML and may affect accessibility. Flexbox is a powerful tool, but like all tools, it should be used appropriately. Ensure that your layouts remain semantic and keep accessibility in mind when using properties like Order and Align Self that change the visual order of items. With these foundational tools and properties, you now have the ability to control layouts, alignment, and item distribution in Flexbox. This gives you the flexibility to create responsive and dynamic designs. The best way to master Flexbox is through hands-on experimentation, so I encourage you to try out different combinations of these properties and see how they interact. The more you practice, the better you'll understand how Flexbox works and how to use it effectively in your projects. Keep exploring and testing your designs to unlock the full potential of Flexbox in your web development journey. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel and like this video if you enjoyed. See you in the next ones.